Hello, welcome to the stream. Woohoo! Second one. All right. And as many of you will probably see from the title, we're going to talk about the new Tesla car they just announced. As of today, I believe it's basically brand new. For those of you who don't know, Tesla released a new car today, so that's exciting. Of course, it's not really a new car. It's the Model S Plaid version. It's an update on the existing Model S. It's the newest, highest end version of it. I believe they announced two versions, a 4-wheel and a 2-wheel, although I could be wrong. And supposedly it's fast, so they say. I mean, Tesla's already kind of fast, but now it's supposedly fast or something. So, yeah. If you guys have already heard about this, let me know in the comments. If you guys haven't heard about this, let me know. It's, tends to be a big day in the tech world when Tesla comes out with a new car, because it seems like they promise it, we'll come out with a new car in 3 years, and then they keep saying that for another 5 years, and then once every 8 years or so, whatever it is, I don't know exactly, they actually come out with a car. And so it's a pretty big day. It's a long wait time to get a car, especially when we're used to an iPhone every year. Crazy how that works. Yeah, so if you let me know if you'd already heard of this or not. And for those of you who haven't already heard of this, how much do you keep up with Tesla? Because there's some interesting things to keep up with. And I'm not saying you should buy a Tesla. Not saying you need to know everything about the company. But there's a reason they're kind of popular, and there's a reason they're in the thumbnail and the title of this video. There's a reason we're talking about them. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. So, thank you everyone who's here. Thanks for checking it out. And for everybody who's watching on the replay, I appreciate you too. Hopefully that gets some good views, and hopefully everyone can learn something. And yeah. All right, we'll dive into it. Talk about my thoughts, what I think. It really seems like there's two huge camps when it comes to Tesla, because there's lots of people who don't think Teslas are that cool. And there's lots of people who think Teslas are to die for. Usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's just the way it is on almost everything. It's not even just Tesla, it's everything. The truth is somewhere in the middle. So, we'll start with the camp who thinks Teslas are the coolest thing in the world, to die for, all that jazz. Going for them, they've got a pretty good argument. I mean, the range is just insane, top of the electric world. I mean, it rivals gas cars at this point. Obviously, there's still the argument about longer to charge, can't go places, but really, how often are you driving somewhere where you can't make it home by the end of the day to plug it in, and it'll be full by the time you're up in the morning? And even then, 390 miles of range, I mean, if you drive 60 miles an hour, you've got over 5 hours of drive. You got six and a half hours of driving before you're out of range. Who's really doing more than 6.5 hours of driving a day? And that's at 60 miles an hour. That's pretty good. And that's, all right, so I'm fairly confident that's the lower of their two models. They announced two models today. One with two engines. One in the front, one in the back. Or not engines, motors, sorry. Big difference. And one with just one. So the one with both has a faster top speed and faster 0 to 60, more horsepower, blah, 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 lower range. The one with just one motor, not as powerful, not as fast, not as, crazy acceleration, but it has longer range because it's a little bit more efficient. Something interesting I saw in a video I was watching, they were talking about the motor. The motor you could pick up with your hands. It's maybe this big. Probably, I don't know. They didn't say how heavy it actually is, but he said, and I believe this was Elon Musk said this during the announcement, you could pick the motor up with your hands. It's nothing crazy. It's super simple, super well engineered. All the power is in the electricity. It's just got super fast. Another fact that they mentioned was it'll hit 20,000 RPM, which for reference, I generally run my truck at 2,000 RPM, so 20 times that amount, which is absolutely crazy. But because it's an electric motor versus a gas engine, it can run that fast. It's not less efficient. Gas engines they have their peak spot of efficiency, so they use gears to get to that peak spot of efficiency. Electric motors, they don't have that issue, so they could just start at 0 RPM and go all the way up to 20,000 RPM apparently, and they don't need to worry about shifting gears to get in the efficiency range. It's the same amount of efficiency all the way up, which is pretty cool. So another flag, as you guys can see here, almost 400 miles of range. Like I said, that's 6.5 hours of driving. I don't want to do more than 6.5 hours of driving a day. Obviously, it's not a delivery vehicle. It's not like you're delivering packages where you're 8 hours of driving a day. And even then, I think the limit is 12 hours. So you drive for half the day, take a nice half-hour long lunch break to charge it up, drive for the next half a day. You're fine. I mean, it's crazy. Continuing along the theme of crazy, under 2 seconds, 0 to 60, I believe what they've claimed is that is the fastest in any production car. No car that you could just buy is that fast. Obviously, race cars are faster, whatever, Formula 1, I think. But this is a car you could just go buy. You can order it today, right now. There's a big button because, that's how websites are designed. 200-mile top speed, you'll never need that unless you're in Germany. And, whatever the horsepower means. I'm not a car person, but I know that's a lot. They actually did release it with the yoke steering wheel, which I find super interesting. I want to try it. Also, there is no shift, like paddle, I guess they call it. There's no way to shift gears into, at all. It just knows. It just guesses. If you want to go backwards, supposedly it already knows you want to go backwards and goes backwards. So I'd be really interested to test that because, I go backwards often. I back into my driveway basically every day. So would it know I drove past my driveway and want to go backwards? Or would I have to dive into the touch screen and try and dial that in and be like, yep, all right, put in reverse now, then go backwards? I don't know if I'd be able to figure that out or not. It's the same screen as before. Supposedly there's upgrades, I'm sure. Blah, 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 blah. Upgraded audio, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so more stats about how fast it is. It's already ridiculous. It's just, here's the two different models. So yeah, there is a long range which goes over 400 range, estimated miles per battery, and that's just insane. That's obviously not as strong, but I would much rather have the long range. And oh no, 1 second slower to 60. I'm never going that fast anyways. This was something I found really interesting. So they can, engineers are cool. They can calculate the wind drag of a vehicle, and supposedly this car receives the lowest score ever. They've been doing things like this for years. They've got the handles that flap in, so it's more aerodynamic. Elon Musk has been trying to get rid of the mirrors forever, literally forever, so that it's more aerodynamic. But he hasn't got that one yet. But supposedly it's the most aerodynamic car to date, or lowest air drag is what it's technically called. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. So one thing they didn't talk about too much, that's one of the big critiques of Teslas, is issues with the paneling, the quality control, the interior. They did say they updated the interior, so that's good. But lots of people who have had issues with just quality control, car stuff that other companies don't have problems with because they've been making cars for so long, they just know how to do it. But yeah, I don't know. So it is interesting that they didn't really address that. That's been one of the main concerns. This is interesting. They've got a whole bunch of different trips that someone hypothetically might make and how long they are. To say, hey, your Tesla you can take trips with it. You can go places. Obviously, none of these are really cross country, but I mean, it's also not a small distance. It's a ways. So that's interesting. And none of them are like close to the 400 range. There's one that's in the 300s, right? This first one is pretty long, but most of these are, sub 300, which makes it a there and back basically. Well, not for the sub 300s, but if you stop, go for a hike and charge your car while you're up there, then it's easy, no problem. This is another thing they said, but that seems like probably something every car manufacturer says, is it's super, super safe. High impact protection, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, this is Tesla, fully autopilot. Like, that's crazy. I mean, you can literally drive down the highway and your car drives you down the highway. You have to be present. I believe it keeps you awake at the moment, but your car will drive itself down the highway. And depending on which package you pay for up front, I mean, it'll automatically change lanes. You can summon it from a parking lot. I'm not sure if that one's. I remember when that first came out, some people were trying it and get not great results, but I don't know. Yeah, so that's the lowdown on it. It's pretty impressive. You don't see that every day. I mean, man, it's good stuff. But there are some negatives that we should probably talk about that, if I don't talk about, it's going to flood the comments. So let's talk about these negatives. And realistically, if people watch it, they're going to put it in the comments anyways, because they're going to go in there and say, like, they're just going to go in from the start of the video because they're going to see me praising Tesla for the good things that they've done, and they're going to put the negatives in. But if you stick around and watch, you don't just pop in the comments right away and put that negative. I'm going to cover them. So let's talk about the negatives. There's really one. All the other ones are kind of like, sure, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's really one negative. And that right now is the mining process for the batteries, because you can't get around needing a big battery. And right now it is not great environmentally. It's not great work environment. There's lots of slave labor, that type of stuff around the environment. So if you'll notice, we don't have lithium ion mines in America. They're all in, generally speaking, third world, war-stricken, poverty countries, and it's actually a pretty big problem. I mean, it's unfortunate because batteries are becoming a more and more important part in our world. We're using them for more things. We're moving to electric because it does have the opportunity for solar and for wind and these things, but you need the batteries either way, because all of those things are weather dependent. Wind, it's not always windy, so you got to take in when you can, store it for when you need it, and use it as you can. It's amazing technology. It's brilliant. It's just, and I mean on both sides, the storing energy from the wind and storing it, like being able to store it. That's one of the problems with a lot of energy solutions, is it's really hard to store energy. Really hard. Solar panels, same thing. You get sunny time, you get night. And so you have to store when you can, and then you use it. And unfortunately, a lot of it is, you don't need your lights during the day. Sun goes down, you need your lights. You're upping your amount of electricity. I mean, I got tons of lights blasting at me. I've got my computer running, the internet to get this to you. I'm not running a light ship right now. I'm using plenty of electricity. No, it's not as bad as it could be. These lights, LEDs have come a long way since we were using incandescents, and man, that's crazy. but it's still not as good as it could be. That's just what it is. So that's really the main one. Like I said earlier, people talk about the paneling and the quality control issues and the things where other companies have been doing it for 150 years since the start of the, you know, Ford and his manufacturing line, and Chevy and GM are right behind them. They've been doing it for years and years and years, and they've perfected interiors and exteriors and paneling and that type of stuff. And they just, every car comes out exactly the same. You don't have to worry about getting a car with a gap between two panels, or a car where the leather isn't sewn right, or whatever the supposed issues are. You just don't really have to worry about those with the Tesla or with the other manufacturers, generally speaking. But my counter to that is Tesla's young and they're going to get better. It seems like they've improved every time, made a more professional product every time, and that's really never been what their focus has been. Their focus has been the really high performance, not luxury feel necessarily, luxury performance. And that's been a great selling point for them. I mean, they don't need to focus on interior leather and just feels like a nice car, because when you drive it, it feels like a nice car. When you use it for what it's supposed to be used for, it feels like a nice car. I mean, they're even going for it with their updated sound system and updated display. They're going for, you can sit in there and watch a movie. So maybe they're working on updating the interior, and that's one thing they said. They updated the whole interior. But who knows? Now, another criticism, back on the energy side of things, lots of people, their criticism is that, well, the energy has to come from somewhere. And right now, almost 60% of our energy still comes from gas, fossil fuels, coal, that type of stuff. And that is true. But my counter to that argument is that Tesla isn't just making the cars and profiting off of them, like still relying on the same old systems, but profiting off of the incentives for the electric cars while they're still generating electricity through gas. Tesla is also making innovation in the area of generating electricity. So like Tesla Solar is a whole big part of their website dedicated towards solar panels for charging your home and your Tesla. So they'll sell you the battery. Again, it kind of comes back to the battery. And as unfortunate as it is, they'll sell you the battery. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. But they'll also sell, that's the power wall right here. But literally the first thing underneath their cars is solar roof, which is pretty awesome technology. You literally, as you guys can probably see, your shingles become solar panels. And I mean, they look pretty good. Kind of up to taste, but they look pretty good. They're actually stronger than tiled shingles. I don't know how they compare to asphalt, which is what we have here in Minnesota. But supposedly they're pretty durable, and they pay for themselves over time, which what that's talking about is when they sell you the roof, the Tesla solar roof, what they do is they get you on a payment plan, and their goal is to make you pay a smaller monthly amount than you would for electricity than you do for the roofing job. So let's say you're paying $200 a month in electricity. They'll get you on a plan where you pay $200 a month until your solar roof is paid off. And I mean, that's amazing. It's free money. Because then once it's paid off, then you just have that expense free. Theoretically, forever. I mean, the sun's not really producing less energy. It produces the same amount every year, all the time. Obviously, day to day is inconsistent, but averages can be measured and figured out, so you can figure out how much you need. Another cool thing is actually if you produce too much electricity, the energy company is legally required to buy it from you. So you can sell it to them for them to use for somebody else, because it's clean energy. It's not burning it's not wasting a resource. The sunlight would hit your roof either way. What else is cool? So I think that's just a cool example of the fact that despite the current reliance of the general system as it is on fossil fuels and that type of stuff, we are moving in this direction. And Tesla's not just building the cars and then benefiting off of the gas infrastructure. They're also making innovation in the shingling and the solar panel, I guess, business, as it were. So yeah, really the biggest downside is the batteries, because it's, from what I've heard, it's hard to recycle them. Not impossible, but hard. It's hard to recycle them. They're big, they're expensive. It's really hard to mine them, and it's right now it's, I mean, batteries are expensive as it is, and from what I've heard, it's not a great, it's not it's a very bad industry. It's basically slave labor. So that's unfortunate, and hopefully technology continues to progress, and batteries is probably the biggest thing that we need to progress right now. Man, if somebody figured out a better battery, I mean, that would be crazy. Something a channel I was watching on YouTube mentioned not too long ago that I found very interesting was technically an air compressor is a battery. You charge it up with air, you compress the air, and then when you release the air, all that air, since it's compressed, tightened down, it will push on whatever you want. So the only problem, obviously, is it takes up a lot of space, and they're still not cheap. But essentially, it's a big battery. I mean, you pump your air compressor full. Imagine if we all just had, maybe a 100-gallon air tank in our basements, and instead of storing electricity in a battery, the electricity generated during the hot hours of the day powered the little air pump, and the air pump pressurized your air tank, and then at the end of the day, when you start to need to tap into your electricity, tap into your energy reserve, you just let out air from your air compressor, which turns a little windmill, which generates electricity. And obviously we've gotten pretty complicated at this point, but the idea is that you just need a tank and then an electric pump. You don't need the lithium, you don't need the degrading batteries. The equal degradingness, or I guess the degrading of a air compressor would be if it gets a leak. But you can patch a leak. If your battery degrades, you have to take it out. You have to, from what I've heard, you have to re-separate the parts out and re-put it back together. Then supposedly it works, because how it works is all these parts are over here, all these parts are over here. Electricity puts them together, and then as they drain, they go back apart. But they flip-flop sides over time, and that loses, I don't know. I don't really understand it. I'm in a little bit over my head, but they degrade. You can rebuild them, but it's not very efficient. But hopefully it gets more efficient. If you have an interest, you should probably study batteries, because batteries are really, really cool. I think we're going to call it for tonight. It's been 30 minutes. I need to go to bed. Thanks to everyone who checked this out.